want to go through what Werner Marx is saying in this book here. This book is Towards the Phenomenological Ethics, the Ethos, and the Life World. It's a great book. It's if you're interested in ethics or even phenomenology at all, because I'm very interested in ethics and I'm very interested in phenomenology. So, what Marx has for you. I mean, when I keep saying Marx, I keep thinking of the communist Karl Marx, but it's Werner Marx. He basically, in this book, he talks about how we should not have a metaphysical ethics. Metaphysical ethics being talking about moral realism and anti-realism, and figuring out moral absolutes, and doing the sort of thing that Kant does, and like a lot of meta-ethics does, but and I can tell he doesn't actually call himself a virtue ethicist, but he talks about disposition, he talks about attunement, he even uses the word virtue many times, and I can tell he's a definite virtue ethicist, and he's moving towards the phenomenological virtue ethics. And I'm going to make a video about virtue ethics and just explaining what that is, or a few videos at least, but I just want to discuss here what his phenomenological ethics is and why his ethics is phenomenological. And I want to explain here what his huge deal is here. Now, first of all, he talks about how we shouldn't have a metaphysical ethics, but basically do ethics. Actually figure out ethics through, figure out what's moral through quality of character, having a certain quality of character, having a certain disposition or attunement. Now, virtue ethics uses the word disposition. Attunement is basically meaning the same thing as disposition. This is sort of like a attitude where he sort of talks about how and he's also referring to Husserl's intersubjectivity, which is where Husserl's intersubjectivity is where Husserl's talking about how we can look at others, view them as very similar to us, view them using looking at them through seeing us as seeing them as a sort of mirror where we see us in them, and which is why we comport ourselves. That's a Heideggerian term. Comport ourselves meaning move ourselves, comport ourselves towards them, and through this, he also uses the word compassion a lot. He's saying that we can with this disposition and quality of character, and he also talks about Heidegger's angst that Dasein has, Dasein being, being there, or being in the world, and that's basically, Heidegger talks about in Being in Time, and as well as other works, that we have this angst, or, anxiety, because we have this, he also talks about authenticity in there, how we have this, feeling that we have to, be a certain thing, and we have to do certain things, and we have to get things right, we have to, sort of make our lives good for ourselves. And, he sort of talks about, person A and person B. Person B is a person who's dealing with Dasein's angst by basically being one for all, all for one and one for all sort of mentality, where I'm just going to worry about myself and, sort of crawl up into the fetal position and while all this stuff happens and not be receptive to anything. And then there's person A, who views others and sort of comports theirself to others, and while comporting themselves, they see the other people as a mirror where they see themselves. And Marx talks about mortality being, a vulnerability that we all have, because we're all mortal, we're all vulnerable, and we're all the same in that respect. So basically, the problems that the world has for us, we are subject to. The things that go on in the world, we are subject to, and they're going to cause problems for us. And he talks about pain and suffering, and how, he also talks about Husserl's empathy, where we can, see ourselves in this person, and we can, how do I get out here? We can sort of comport ourselves towards those people who are just dealing with design's angst in that different way, where they just curl up in the fetal position and all for one for all sort of thing, where and through the person A comporting themselves to person B, there's a sort of compassion going on there. There's a compassion, and there's ethos, and there's disposition. And because person A is going through a transformation, where if this person looks at others, they see themselves in others, like you view others as a mirror, where you're seeing yourself in the others. You see themselves as mortal and subject to pain and suffering, just like you are. Which is why you comport yourself to others, empathize with them, sympathize with them, and sort of grow this sort of disposition or attunement, which is better. And, this sort of transformation leads to other people doing it, and then this is sort of this is sort of everybody coming into a collective of what Husserl calls pairings, moving towards a sort of collective where the feelings that we want the good life is institutionalized morality, where we should be good to others because we all want to feel good as possible if we just kind of come together. Now, I guess he's talking about also that we can just have sociality also, while we are also we're being with others. And I guess that's makes me want to think, like, what phenomenology has to do with this? It has to do with Husserl's intersubjectivity, where we pair with others by seeing ourselves in others, recognizing pain, suffering, and mortality that they have, and instead of going from an individual mortality of each person, we're going towards a sociality of creating social structures in this life world, dwelling in the life world not as one. Not as each one person, each individual person dealing with angst, the angst that design has, but instead we're doing it as a collective whole, immersed in sorts of sociality. Now, what this has to do with phenomenology is that we recognize, if we use phenomenology, we have feelings of being vulnerable. Existentialist ideas comes from Heidegger, as well as Sartre and our others, where we have pressures of authenticity and things like that. We feel that upon ourselves, and we feel the need to make a purpose and do well and not avoid pain and suffering and all that stuff. And and if we're by ourselves doing this, there's problems. Just like Heidegger talks about with angst and all that stuff that design has. There's going to be problems. Now, I'm going to discuss in a different video Husserl's discussion in the Cartesian Meditations about his intersubjectivity. I'm going to use the Cartesian Meditations as well as an introduction to Husserlian phenomenology by Rudolf Bernat, Aso Kern, and Eduard Marbach, who give really good quotations as well as examples. I mean, not examples, but like more explanation of what is supposed to be going on here. But anyway, I want you to think about this. Do you think that this is a good way to go? Do you think it's good to sort of do this? And I guess I'm not Karn 77 when I say that. I'm sort of thinking about you here. Do you think that we should, go about this instead of, while comporting ourselves to others, and sort of, go through this, sort of pairing with others, where we deal with where I see myself in others and I pair with them, and and I deal with my pain and suffering with them, is then they help me deal with mine, and our both of our mortalities together, which institutionalizes a good life morality, which is why we should, be moral for the good of others that we are deeply interwoven with, verflochten, as Husserl would say. I guess, what do you think about this? Do you think this is a good way to go? Do you think that Werner Marx is a good idea here, or do you think, because I guess you are I'm addressing on the card 777 here. I guess you said that you are a antinatalist. But I guess what I'm asking you to consider is that, do you think that if we all came together and sort of help each other out with it, comport ourselves to others, and sort of empathize with others, and have this sort of one world apathy, which is I'm currently writing a manuscript, a book where it's called the Phenomenology of the World, which is basically using Marx's stuff and Husserl's stuff as well as Heidegger's, and bring a few of my concepts that I've come up with into it, so that we can sort of do this sort of one world apathy. One world apathy is my term that I've used. No one else has used that. I mean, not for phenomenology even, but I guess I want to think about that. What do you think? Do you think that this is a good way to go? Do you think that there's a reason to? I guess you might consider this a social contract, but this is an unwritten social contract where we comport ourselves towards others and undergo this virtuous disposition, attunement, sort of transformation, where we engage in this one world apathy in communities, intermonadic communities, as Bernays, Kurt, and Marbach say, while explaining Husserl. So I guess, what do you think? What do you think about this sort of ethics? Do you think this is also, and I guess here I'm not, Marx even says that this is not a metaphysical, thing. This is not really a moral realism. It's not saying that there are moral properties out there, moral absolutes like Kant says. It's more that we are mortal. We undergo a lot of pain and suffering. We're vulnerable. We have dread and angst, as the existentialists would say. And how do we deal with this? Do we just curl up in the fetal position and sort of go the antinatalist way, or do we just come together and empathize, sympathize, and be empathetic with others, and be with others as if if your friend is having a tough time, your empathy and your apathy and your sympathy will be like as you were there along with that person, and not they aren't alone, as well as others might be with them, because the others comport themselves to this person as well as that person comports themselves to you. And I guess, I don't know, I want to know what you think about this. Do you think that this is a, and I guess I know that this is not plausible for all people, because there are many people, I know people personally, who would not be on board with this. And I guess, do you think that this is a possible thing? Thank you.